you start thinking of every single time this witness has been inconsistent. You start hyper-focusing on it. And that's how you get to points like in the Stormy Daniels cross-examination, focusing on things like, you lied about whether you ate dinner. Did you eat dinner or did you not dinner? How was dinner? Oh, you didn't have dinner, did you? And you hyper-focus on that, and you think that's going to be your aha moment. But what you forget is that you're so in the case that maybe that point about dinner, which seems so important when you're in your law office at 3 in the morning writing it out, maybe isn't that important to the jury.
And if I may, I think there's one tell from the prosecutor's side. I'm not seeing them objecting. I'm not seeing them saying ask and answer.
Very rarely. And they object.
There have been a few.
There have been a few when the questions are improper, but basically, you asked me earlier, Anna, how would a prosecutor feel? You can sort of tell how they feel. They're kind of sitting back and letting the defense do their thing. We have nothing to hide. Ask them anything you want. If they really thought this was killing them, they might be speaking up more often.
There is testimony right now about, again, lies to Congress or his testimony before Congress. Blanche asked, you repeatedly said to congressmen and senators that you had accepted responsibility for the crime. Cohen, correct, and that I was going to prison as a result. Blanche, but do you agree with me that lying under oath is not accepting responsibility? Cohen, can you clarify your question? Blanche, do you agree with me that when you plead guilty of a crime and you are lying, that's not accepting responsibility, is it? Cohen, I accepted responsibility and I am suffering consequences as a result. Blanche, under the guidelines, you get time off for accepting responsibility? Cohen, you do. You get a reduction. Yasmin, take it away. What else have we missed inside that courtroom?
So I want to talk quickly and bring folks up to date on what they're talking about, just to remind folks when it came to Michael Cohen's congressional testimony back in 2019. It was with regards to a New York AG lawsuit against then-President Trump, in which Michael Cohen did, in fact, lie under oath to Congress, despite the fact that he had said, and that's what Todd Blanche is trying to get at, that he was accepting responsibility, although they later realized he had lied. I actually found this letter that I wanted to read for folks quickly, a letter to AG Merrick Garland from James Comer, Chairman Jordan as well, referring Michael Cohen to the DOJ for lying to Congress, saying, as indicated in the 2019 letter, Cohen, while testifying under oath before the House Oversight Committee, made willfully and intentionally false statements of material fact that were contradicted by the record established by the Justice Department in the United States v. Cohen. Cohen also made statements to the Oversight Committee that were contradicted by witnesses with firsthand knowledge of the subject matter. In particular, Cohen lied at least 6 times. So Michael Cohen lied to Congress in his congressional testimony to the House Oversight Committee at least 6 times. This is what Todd Blanche is looking at and trying to get into, not only kind of lying under oath in a court of law, lying to Congress as well. One other thing that they've talked a lot about, guys, blame shifting. They're trying to kind of paint Michael Cohen as an individual who does not take responsibility for his own actions, right? You went after Judge Pauley publicly. You went after other individuals publicly as well. You went after the SDNY. You called them animals online. You do not take responsibility for your actions. Instead, you are shifting blame. That is what it seems the defense is trying to get at in this cross-examination. You lie and you do not take responsibility for your own actions, hence what you're doing here. That is what, of course, they're trying to get at with this cross-examination.
Indeed, Yasmin, I mean, Blanche just asked, so you blame a lot of people over the years for the crime you were convicted of. Cohen, yes.
Exactly.
Correct. Your accountant, the judge, you blame the judge, you blame President Trump, Blanche says. Cohen says, yes, sir. President Trump, yes, sir. Blanche asks Cohen, does the outcome of this trial affect you personally? Cohen, yes. Joining us now is Jeremy Saland, a criminal defense attorney and a former Manhattan assistant district attorney. Thank you for being with us. This is an interesting kind of line of questioning. So is the outcome of this trial affecting you personally? Yes. What is that intended to get?
They're working with what they have. They only have so much. And one of the big points is the credibility of Michael Cohen, the agenda of Michael Cohen, and the financial gain of Michael Cohen. The agenda being, I abhor this man. I detest this man. I want to see the worst things happen to him. He made me go to jail. He's made me be the fall guy. I can make money off this, which I have, and I'm admitting to making money off of this. And I've lied to my wife. I've lied to Congress. I've lied to the court under oath. So whatever they can, they got to keep on going after with him. If you diminish him and you make him look like just a bad guy, What does it do? It steals away that this is really a falsifying business records case, and you make it the Michael Cohen case. And if you can't believe Michael Cohen, you can't believe this whole house of cards.
Well, it's what comes after that, what seemed to be a moment in court with that question, does the outcome of this trial affect you personally? And Cohen says yes. Then I'm still trying to figure out why Blanche decides to just move on right after that, because this is where he goes in his very next question. Blanche, do you or your lawyers say anything to Judge Pauley that you felt pressured by the government to make a guilty plea? Cohen did not. Blanche, by the way, your wife had nothing to do with the leasing agreements. Cohen, some of the millions were solely in her name. Some of the medallions, corporations were in her name. Blanche, when you received monthly payments, the checks were made to you or your wife. Cohen, the corporations, names. There were 16. So now we're just completely in a different area. I'm wondering what the strategy is here, Anna, in that he didn't let that moment sit with the jury. He moves on.
Well, part of this is balancing letting the moment sit with the moment happened, right? And he now gets to use that. And I think one thing that's really important for us to remember is the jurors are going to be instructed on credibility, and credibility does not just have to do with truthfulness, right? It doesn't just have to do with whether someone has lied or not. It's whether they're believable. And here he's getting into another area, which is not just the lying, but the bias and motive. And so when they get that instruction, the jurors, when they get that instruction, they're going to be told all about all the different things that they can consider with respect to credibility. And these are big areas, right? So that bias, that motive, the reasons why he does things just for himself, those are the things that the jurors are going to be looking at and considering when they consider the credibility, the believability of Cohen. So this is very smart by the defense.
And Chuck, this is kind of one of the pillars that you were talking about earlier, the different pillars that the defense has to erect. When they ask him, does the outcome of this trial affect you personally? And he say yes. And then they go into the medallion taxis and the millions of dollars that he lost as a consequence of being involved in this. That is a different pillar.
It's a different pillar, but there may be a salutary reason for switching at that point. Mr. Blanche got the answer he wanted. It was a bad answer. I mean, a witness on the stand under oath admitted that he had a personal interest in the outcome of the case. The witness's interest in a case should be to tell the truth and that justice be done. Cohen said, no, I really care what happens here. I want this guy in jail. I want this guy convicted. So Blanche took the answer, as we were taught to do as prosecutors, put it in his pocket and moved on. I'm not sure it's a terrible strategy, frankly, because, Anna, if you want to dwell on a good answer that you just got, it could get worse, right? I mean, maybe Cohen recognizes what he did and said and then tries to clean it up if you ask him another question. You got the answer you want? Move on.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, what is that answer?
Well, on summation, I think that's a great point, because on summation now you can say, and you know why he said that? Here are the reasons why. Because it's not in evidence, and you're allowed to tell your story on summation. What's in evidence is the answer, but why, how we got to that answer is not in evidence, and that's a great tool for the defense on summation to hit on and hit on and hit on, just like they will on all these other things about the agenda and the money and the, as you said, credibility in all its forms.
Is there a point in cross-examination where the jury's going to feel like this has been tied up in a bow in terms of what the defense is trying to accomplish in their cross-examination?
There is, but there's no magic wand that I, as a defense attorney, could say, oh, you got it, we're done. Thank you very much. I wish it worked that way, and so does the prosecution. It doesn't. So you have to be able to gauge that, and it's not always easy. As a defense attorney and as a prosecutor, but more so as a defense attorney, sometimes you go and you hit and you got to stop. It doesn't help, and eventually there's diminishing returns, and you got to walk it back. But it's not so easy in the moment when you are kind of like, you know, taking that water fountain and it's turning into an open fire hydrant of information. So it's not always easy.
And if I may, I mean, as a prosecutor, I always felt that there was no such thing as too much evidence, right? You don't know when you've hit the point. You have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury. How many more witnesses are going to do that for me? Or did I do it 8 witnesses ago? And so I want to keep going as a prosecutor, though mindful of what Jeremy is saying. You may have already crossed that threshold. Sometimes, at least in federal court where I practice, the judge would stop you. But I wasn't going to stop me.
But speaking of which, when you talk about the sort of arc of witnesses, Michael Cohen's supposed to be the prosecution's last witness. That's what they have told Judge Merchan. And so, Anna, what do you make of that choice?
Well, I don't think it should come as a surprise to anyone that they're ending with him. In fact, when I heard that they were thinking they might have one other witness after him, I was a little surprised because you want to start strong, you want to end strong. And so in their mind, they're ending with their strong witness, right? They're ending with this witness that ties everything together.
But a flawed witness, as we've pointed out, as the defense has pointed out.
Definitely a flawed witness.
Lies.
But, you know, what they're going to do, which others have sort of said, is they're going to say to the jury, he comes to you as a person, just like anyone else. And we, the prosecution, don't get to pick our witnesses. And I can tell you this both from experience of my own in practice and having watched tons and tons of trials. Juries convict all the time based on the testimony of a witness who has multiple convictions, has lied, and has admitted, I've lied. But please believe me, jury. And the jurors say, OK, we will, and we'll convict.
And interesting that now Blanche is kind of focusing in on Cohen's relationship with his wife and all of these payments that came by and the bank accounts that were created. And Blanche says to him, without taking and talking about communications with your wife, do you know if your wife found out about what you did with $130,000? An objection that was sustained. Blanche, you said the funds were taken from home equity to an LLC. Correct, says Cohen. Blanche. And you testified on Monday, just a few minutes ago, that you decided to go this way because it was quick and because you wanted to conceal it from your wife. Cohen, correct. You said she had no knowledge of the HELOC in 2018. No, not that she didn't have knowledge of the HELOC. She didn't have knowledge of the transaction. Did you have a practice of dealing and deleting communications generally around 2018 using encryption, Signal, etc.? On Signal, it does so automatically. Did you have a habit, Blanche asks him, of asking your wife to delete your communications? An objection, that objection sustained.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I think it's rich, maybe figuratively and literally, that Donald Trump's defense is going after Michael Cohen for lying to his wife. Because that, in part, is what this sort of all stems from. And again, jurors should be only listening to what's in the four corners of that courtroom. But if you're in New York, you know Donald Trump, you know Marla Maples, you know his whole history. So you're going after this guy. You shouldn't believe him because he's lied to his wife. Well, then you shouldn't. Granted, Donald Trump's not testifying, and I don't expect he will. You shouldn't believe Donald Trump.
Did the fact, Jeremy, that Trump opened and his defense opened with a statement that he had not had the relationship with Stormy Daniels in this case as an opening salvo, do you think that was a mistake, or was this something that could help in this part of it?
I think that likely was in large part done at the behest of the client as opposed to necessarily the right strategy. And that's when you as a defense attorney have to say to your client, I run the show. This is my house. This is my courtroom. I'm in the trenches. You want to do what you want to do outside of the courtroom, whether I agree or not, that's on you, brother. But in that courtroom, I'm the one who calls the shots. And you open that door, and that in part, not in part, almost in whole, is why Donald Trump will not testify, because he'll open up so many doors that we don't even know exist, because that's the man who he is. And he's going to say that, and he's going to do it.
Let's go back into the courtroom right now. Todd Blanche asks Michael Cohen, you gave a statement under oath that you never asked for a pardon from Trump. And Cohen says, I never asked for it. I spoke to my attorney about it because we had seen on television President Trump potentially pre-pardoning everybody to bring an end to this. Cohen, I reached out to my attorney to ask him whether or not this is legitimate. Blanche, so you provided testimony, prepared remarks, and under oath you said, I never asked for nor would I accept a pardon from President Trump. Cohen, correct. And do you remember being asked the same question about accepting a pardon? And